He was a man without podcast spirit.
What do you mean I don't have any podcast spirit? I'm a busy businessman in the big city. I don't have time for podcast spirit.
But on a fateful trip home, everything changed.
What do you mean I have to go to my grandfather's podcast farm all the way upstate? It's the day before the big meeting.
There, he'd learn the spirit of podcasts.
I think I'm a little old to believe in the Podcast Republic app, don't you think?
But under his nose this whole time was the free solution to his problems.
I don't care about the big meeting anymore. All I care about is you and me and favoriting my podcast so they stream instantly to my device.
This holiday season,
Merry Podcast to all in the free Podcast Republic app.
available on the Google Play Store.
What's wrong, Trip?
Well, I really like this podcast, and
I like it too.
I just wish that there were like a way that was easy for people to show their appreciation if they were able to.
Like what?
I don't know, like if there was like a website, right, where you could be like, hey, I'm going to give you some recurring donations, and, you know, for like $2 a month, say, I could get an email from them.
Patreon.com.
I'm sorry, who are you and why are you in
me? I'm an angel. I forgot my wings, so we'll just have to present. Don't tell my boss.
I'm sorry, you're an angel and you
That's
are now...
right, and I'm just gonna let all you friendly people know about it. It's patreon.com, Patreon.com, and it's a great way to support your favorite podcast. It's easy. Just say you want to give them money, and then you get stuff. Just like Christmas every month.
Did you invite this very drunk man into your home? I don't understand what's going on here.
What is this, my Friday night? No, I didn't invite a drunk man home with
Well,
me.
you're like this man has appeared. Hello, sir. Please stop. Please don't drink that.
Ooh, it smells like rubbing alcohol. Can't die.
That's a vase. There's flowers in it. You shouldn't drink that.
I didn't bring him in here.
I guess we should listen to him, and we should visit patreon.com/dissectingthe80s if we want to share our holiday spirit with our favorite podcast.
I think that's a lovely idea. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna take this tinsel and I'm gonna Kool-Aid man my way through the window. Scoobity-boop!
That's patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Trip Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers. With me, as always, is a man who wants nothing more than to wear short shorts and get a job in a rock and roll band. The Macho Man Drew.
Andrew Lano. I mean, I'm halfway there, really, in my everyday life.
Indeed, you certainly are.
If it was like a Taco Bell eater, that would be me.
We are talking about one of the weirder things we've ever talked about on this show, and that's
saying something.
Yeah. We scraped the bottom of the barrel. We decided that wasn't further enough, so we drilled a hole in the barrel, and we found some stuff underneath the barrel that previously was not known to exist. If you're familiar with the Sheb Woolley novelty song, Purple People Eater, you might know that, actually, it's probably pretty unlikely that you know, there's also a movie based on that song. We watched Purple People Eater, so you know what that means.
We gotta go back. We gotta go dissect the 80s. It's your clearly dubbed singing. Something's gotta be done about your clearly dubbed singing.
When the mega powers explode.
I'm talking about the 80s. Oh, yeah.
Great Scott!
Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah.
Mega powers, yeah!
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
And, like, here's the thing about this movie. It's got kind of a rock star cast.
It really does.
It's Shelley Winters.
AKA the woman who drowns in the Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah, near and dear to my heart. It has Ned Beatty, who is the voice of Lotso Huggin' Bear, if you're familiar with the Toy Story franchise.
And also the guy in Deliverance, for the reference that might land a little more broadly.
You know what? No shaming.
I'm just saying, he's the man who indeed has to learn to squeal like a piggy. And Thora Birch in her first ever movie, credited as just Thora.
Ooh. Oh, they were trying something there.
In the beginning of the movie, it's like, and introducing Thora. Like, wait a minute, she's not a superhero.
She's not a mononym yet. You have
Right.
to earn that.
Yeah. So this is the part of this that really intrigued me, and that is the song was released in 1958. 30 years later, they do the movie, 1988. 30 years after that, we do a podcast about the movie about the song. And I just liked we're kind of like it, right?
We're going to make a movie about the podcast about the movie.
Yes. So in 2048, they're going to make a movie about this podcast about the movie about the song.
Oh my, can you imagine? Who would you want to play you? I guess you use today's stars. Who would you want to play you?
Like, assuming they aren't going to be old and dead by the time this. Okay, that's an extremely difficult question.
Really?
Yeah. Do you feel like you have one just like off the cuff?
I have a few options in my head.
Because there's not a famous person who particularly looks like me. I used to get, when my hair was longer and curlier, I would get.
That guy, the impressionist.
Oh, no, that was before that. I used to get, like, in college, I got Frank Caliendo, but he really fell off the face of the earth. But then my hair was a little longer and a little curlier, and people would always say John C. Reilly, which I never knew how to take, because he's, like, legitimately 30 years older than me, I think. And I was always like, that's not a flat, like, I know that dude's funny, but he's not, like, I mean, whatever, John C. Reilly's a handsome enough dude, but he's not, like, some heartthrob. And so it's like, you think I look like a middle-aged dad?
That's a rough one. I remember someone at work, like one of the clients who came into the spa was like, "Oh, you look like this person." I don't remember who it was, but she then pulled up a photo to prove her point, and I was like wildly offended, and my coworker had to like duck into the back to not laugh, and I was like, "Thank you. You have a wonderful night, ma'am."
All right. So you answer because I obviously don't have one at the ready.
I feel like if we're going like weird, obscure, I would Broadway star Wesley Taylor, because we're kind of similar types. He was in Smash, which you didn't watch, and I didn't watch either because it was dumb.
Wait, there was a television show called Smash?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
With it was about how a show got on Broadway.
Oh, yeah, no, not on my radar.
Oh, yeah, it was like 10 years ago at this point. It was a Smash train wreck. Yeah, I think he's probably the one that I would pick.
That's why I asked. I was curious.
Because I'm trying to think like who is about I'm like, do we do the CW treatment and we're just like, whoever's vaguely within 10 years of my age can do it?
Yeah. How about we do this? I'm gonna throw that out to the listeners, right? If they were making Dissecting the 80s the movie, who do you think would be the two of us? And please don't pick a man 40 years older than me to be me. That would be nice.
And would Ed Begley Jr. play himself?
He would have to.
Or we have to get someone like way famous to play Ed Begley Jr.
It's like that's the cameo.
Like
and
George
like,
Clooney
oh,
as Ed Begley Jr.
Yes.
No, Kurt Russell as Ed Begley Jr. That's who I want.
That's the Dreamcast. I would love to have Kurt Russell in the movie about us. Maybe Jonah Hill?
To play you? I can see that.
Yeah. Like, I feel like we have the right, like, he has the right vibe generally. Like, he seems like a goofy, like, in a good way, like, a little bit goofy. Like, he seems not to take himself too seriously, but also, like, really gives a crap about what he does. I think I would be fine with that. I think that would work.
I'm fine with that because that means they might cast, they might be like, fuck it, we're just going to get Channing Tatum to play Andrew and we'll rewrite that part. Rewrite
so
everything.
You think my casting immediately makes you 60 points more attractive than me? They're like, oh, let's get the hottest possible person.
No, I
Thank
say
you.
they work together a lot.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, so 2048, keep an eye out for Purple People Eater,
the podcast
the movie
movie.
about the. Actually, no, we would have to. It'd have to transition. It would have to be like Purple People Eater, the podcast, the musical.
Oh, so it's going to Broadway first.
It has to be. Well, it has to be different formats, right? So like, it was a song, and then it was a movie, and now it's a podcast, and then it needs to be a musical, and then after that, it'll be 2078.
And then a straight play.
Well, I think you have to get even crazier. Like, it'll be a different form of art we don't know exists yet. It'll be like eyeball beams or something like that.
Okay,
where they like fire a neuron transmitter in the back of your neck and it just like plays out in your brain. That's what it'll be.
Sure.
Anyway, we spent a long time talking about that to hide the fact that this movie is trash.
It's a weird line for me because it's not aggressively bad,
it's just because I'm like I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, this is a children's movie. I have to understand that it's not. I'm not the target demo.
Right.
I wasn't offended by it. I just was kind of like bored and confused by it. You know what I mean?
It's deeply confusing. So we should say this. Despite the fact that it came out in 1988, it looks like a shot-on-video movie that you rented at a Blockbuster or your local video store in like 1994 that was made to be rented at a Blockbuster in 1994. It looks so hardcore 90s to me, like in terms of the lighting and the shot-on-video quality. It's like totally what I associate with early 90s direct-to-video schlock, like a Olsen Twins movie.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen a clip of it.
I've watched the Slumber Party several times. And the Mystery series.
Sometimes when I ask questions or use points of reference, it's not for you, it's for the people who listen, because I know you've seen a Olsen Twins movie. But that is exactly what this looks like. But here's the part that I think is just the craziest. There's no way this wasn't cooked up by some executive who played the song for a grandson or a granddaughter and had that kid react positively to the song, which all kids do. It's silly and goofy, and you could play that song for a 6-year-old now.
It's got you can kind of bop to it, yeah.
Yeah, and they would probably find it a little silly, and like, you know, maybe 6 years is too old. I don't know anything about children, but you could probably play this song for the right, a small one, a small, recently created one. You could play this song for them, and they would still find it amusing. Like, it's silly. The song isn't silly and cute and fun because it has cultural references. It's because it's like goofy wordplay.
Yeah, I listen to the first 45 seconds when I go through my Halloween mix. I'm like, okay, cool. It's the same thing as Heaven on Earth. I'm like,
that one sucks because it takes forever to get to the part you want. It's like, I just want the jams.
I know. But it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. So I guarantee that's how this came about, that they were like, oh, the Purple People Eaters got heat. I got the perfect picture for you. My grandkids, they love this Purple People Eater song. I know it's old, but every kid loves the classic rock and roll doo-wop of the 1950s here in 1988. So let's get a whole movie based on jukeboxes from when I was a child.
Do you think it had anything to do with the 30th anniversary?
I mean, it certainly didn't hurt. I don't know if it was like in particular, like, oh, we have to celebrate this goofy novelty song's major
no, but I mean, like,
triumphant.
To me, it feels like a TV movie, even though I can find there's no information about this movie on the internet, so there's nothing to verify my claim that I'm pretty sure this was a TV movie. Because
it's totally on YouTube, by the way. We haven't mentioned that. The whole thing for free in a nice quality for once, too.
Wait, mine looked like milk. Where did you get which?
Oh, it's not like high def, but it looks probably as good as it looked ripped from the VHS tape it came from.
Okay, that's fair. At one point, it says "play" in the top left.
Yeah, exactly. It would be accurate.
But it feels like a TV movie, and like in my brain, like they'd be like, "Oh, it's a Halloween, for Halloween, it's the 30th anniversary of this song, so we're gonna get him to come out and sing it, and then we're gonna play this movie."
Yeah, it just seems so bizarrely out of touch because the whole thing is centered around a bunch of kids in 1988 being super into 1950s like doo-woppy rock and roll. It's just bizarre. Like,
it's also weirdly set up because
yes,
there's a point where, and I don't mean the movie, but yes, I mean the movie, but I'm speaking particularly about this concept because there's a point where Neil Patrick Harris's character, he's the main little kid, like pre-Doogie Howser. He said, like, he's with his grandpa, and he's like, oh, can we put on some music? And his grandpa's like, oh, I have records. And he's like, what about a radio? And then he goes to his grandpa, and he's like, no, I don't like new music. And he goes over, and he's like, oh, the twist. And he, like, Neil Patrick Harris says that, and then puts on the record and dances to it. And I was like, so why did you want the radio if you, like, what records do you think grandpa has?
Yes. It's like
FDR's speech? Like, what?
It's also weird because later in the movie, one of the kids is like, oh, why don't we play some Motley Crue or whatever other 80s band that I referenced that Trip doesn't remember the band for. And then everyone else is like, no, we want to play Chubby Checker and Little Richard. Like, good golly, Miss Molly. I'm like, what? What are these children? They don't exist.
This movie should have taken place in the 50s.
Yes, exactly. And also, I say this as somebody who genuinely likes a lot of older music and always kind of has. Like, my musical taste is always, I love all types of different music, and even as a younger person, I enjoyed listening to Sinatra and like crooners and stuff.
I once got a Phil Spector collection for Christmas, so yeah.
Right. Like, our parents exposed us to lots of different music, but also let us go figure out what we liked on our own, too. And so we got a little bit of their stuff. And, like, you know, the two of us, I think, have a lot of those influences in our past. But it's like the average kid who was, Neil Patrick Harris is like 10 in this movie, give or take?
If that, yeah.
Is like super duper into Chuck Berry and Screamin' Jay Hawkins. He's reading them out like they're like famous baseball stars, cards that he found. He's like, Screamin' Jay Hawkins, Chuck Berry,
Did
Chubby
I tell you
Checker.
I pulled out Screamin' Jay Hawkins at a Lush store the other day?
No, but this is weird because literally yesterday I enthusiastically added him to a crossword puzzle my girlfriend and I were working on, and she was like, "There's not enough letters," and I was like, "No, it's Screamin'.
There's no G. It's an apostrophe.
It's Screamin' with an apostrophe, so it does fit." And she was just like, "Who is that person?" And I was like,
promise you, we're not 100. We take off our masks, or like Scooby-Doo masks.
It's like, peel it up.
I was in a Lush with my boyfriend, and his version of "I Put a Spell on You" came on.
Oh, okay.
And I know that right away, and so I'm like bopping to it, and one of the employees was like, "Who sings this?" And the other employee was like, "I have no idea. I've never heard this." I was like, "That's Screamin' Jay Hawkins."
I love pulling out. I would have yelled that across the store. I would have been so excited to be the old man in the young person's skin.
And one of them like heard me and looked at me, and they're like, "Okay." And then they like went over to the thing and like, "Oh, it's Screamin' Jay Hawkins." And I was
nothing better than being like, "Oh, it's this," and people are like, "Yeah, okay, Google. Oh, it is that." And like, yeah, that's why I said it, because it's the answer. We should start talking about the plot of this movie because we're in here.
What
too deep.
plot?
Okay, well, there's some things I want to address. So let's start at the beginning, where the gym class on the last day of school is like 16 trampolines, like big trampolines, not the little guys, the ones from your backyard. 16 of them pushed up next to each other, and all these kids are just like aimlessly jumping 6 inches high at a time, which is really weird looking, for one. And two, what is the budget for the gym class of this thing? And furthermore, for the movie, why were there 16 trampolines? That's so much money.
If you asked a 9-year-old, like, if you could do anything in gym class, but it has to be like movement and fun, what would you do? That's what they'd pick. 16 trampolines.
If we could just jump forever, that would be my dream.
And as an adult, that is difficult to do for a long time. We bought an hour ticket to a trampoline park once, and after 30 minutes, we were all kind of winded.
Yeah, it's always like the first hour is like $27, and then the next hour is like $8. So you're like, well, we'll get a 2-hour package, and then 33 minutes into it, you're like, I have a stitch. Is there anywhere I can get water, not from a fountain? I just
It tastes like metal and plastic.
Yes, exactly. Can I purchase a sports drink? I got a wicked stitch.
Use your free token for the bull ride.
Yeah, exactly. I also love, and this is a trope of all movies, but it's always the last day of school, and they're always in the middle of some activity. Like, the last day of school was literally you just passed your yearbook around and chit-chatted. Like, nobody had anything for you to do. You were there to bleed out the clock.
Like, if you think those gym teachers want to push out those trampolines and then put them back into whatever giant trampoline storage the school has, you're dreaming.
Yeah, you're taking a trampoline apart to put that bad boy away. You gotta unhook every one of those springs.
Well, it's easy because they weren't covered and padded.
Still, you gotta unclip them all. You gotta make sure they go back on the right box. This is a nightmarish put away scenario.
Yeah. And like, so later the movie like kind of realizes it forgot to explain some stuff, and so it's like, oh, Neil Patrick Harris is a dreamer, not a doer.
Yeah.
And like the whole first half of this movie has maybe 3 lines about that. Like the gym teacher's like, oh, he's always daydreaming.
Yes.
And then he gets home and there's no more reference to like, hey, he like brings animals home. And I was like, I don't know what that means.
This dude has a zoo. This is the precursor to We Bought a Zoo, and it's I adopted a bunch of weird creatures to make a zoo, because the mom is holding a honest to God goose that's just like meh, meh, all over this movie.
It's too loud.
And
There's too much goose sounds.
so many honks, and this poor actress is like holding this goose as it like wiggles around, and she's like, now Neil Patrick Harris, I told you no more adopting animals.
And I'm like, that mom's super cool for not just like, well, we're having goose tonight. Thwap.
Yes. And then that immediately transitions into the thing that sets the plot of the movie in motion is your dad has got a business trip to Europe, generically, for the whole summer.
It's a children's
and I'm
movie.
going with him. I know, but it's like, wait a minute. She's like, I'm going to Europe with your dad until Labor Day. So it's like a 3-month trip that they're just like, later, kids. That is a ballsy thing for a parent to do.
They introduce an older sister only to ship her out to a camp 2 minutes later.
Yes, it makes no sense.
And, like,
she's just there to relay the information about the parents leaving and then be like, I'm going to camp. Bye-bye.
Like, mom should have said that. And then just be like, Thora Birch has to stay in your room because grandpa won't sleep in our bed, which is the dumbest. I would have been like, okay, then I'm sleeping in your bed.
But also, grandpa lives 2 miles or so away. Why didn't they just go to grandpa's? Or like, why didn't grandpa live farther away? We went to grandpa's house, which would make it so much better that they got trapped in the 50s, because it's like, oh, you're going to grandpa's farm for the summer and he's got all sorts of stuff for you kids to get up to, like records and Tom Sawyering you into painting his house.
That's true. I can see that too. It's just, I'm like, it's so bizarre. And then he's like bummed that he's just kind of upset for no reason. He doesn't really give a specific reason. And then his dad's like, well, if you want, you can have the garage for the summer. Like, you can have it for the whole summer. You can like make it into a clubhouse. And I was like, take that deal. That's a great deal, buddy.
And, he's like, I'm too old for a clubhouse. And I'm like, son, you are going to do a lot of illegal beer drinking and porn magazine perusing in this garage now. This is your place.
Yeah, I was like, also, I've never been in a club. And I was like, this feels like a thing we should dwell on for a minute to explain this character. But we're not gonna.
Because they keep going back to him having no friends, and then later the Purple People Eater, he keeps calling him his best friend, and I was like, this is a profoundly sad narrative to this story. Like, they think it's cute, and I'm just here like, this poor kid.
Like, what's
Nobody
happening
likes
here?
him. Yeah.
But again, I don't know enough about the kid to make any comment about him.
Right.
Like, he could be a stupid, shitty kid for all I know. And so when again, the movie feels like it's setting random things up, and then it just doesn't. Like,
Right.
There's no payoff, because when they go to Grandpa, he's in the house. We see him in the house alone before they get there, and he's being kind of shifty and like looking through stuff as though he's hiding things or like he knows something about something. And I was like, oh, like he knows the Purple People Eater, like he, this song is a summoning song for them, or what? Like he's gonna be involved somehow.
Yes, I totally thought he was going to be part of that.
Like
yeah.
Scary German guy from Monster.
Yeah.
Nope.
Not the case. Not here.
His grandpa's landlord feels like he's hitting on old women in the beginning.
He really is.
And then all of a sudden in the middle, he's like, no, I'm a villain and I'm evicting you all.
Yeah, that guy seems like halfway into the movie they were filming it and they're like, we don't have a bad guy in this. What's the conflict in the movie? And they're like, they're getting evicted. I'm like, well, what does that have to do with a Purple People Eater? I thought this is like a fun romp. Like he gets a bit like, no. Kids really like love it when you can work in a thing about ageism. Can we get one of the characters to just do like a monologue about ageism and how kids should spend more time with the elderly? Can you see
This
if
was
you can
written
work that
by
in?
a grandmother.
It was written by absolutely a grandmother or a grandparent in general, because they're like, I know what the kids like. It's 1950s hip shaking music, and then also spending time with their elderly relatives.
Yeah, it's like the plot of this movie should have been E.T./Mac and Me. Like alien lands
Yes.
on Earth, kids
Yes.
hide it, get into shenanigans, and hide it from the government. I don't
Have an
know why.
adventure.
I don't know why the eviction of an old folks community was even brought up. Like that should have been like a bump of coke and get out of the room.
Yeah. So Rita is the grandpa's neighbor, and
Shelley
they are
Winters.
they're definitely doing it. BT dubs.
Oh yeah.
And the grandpa is like, well, I'm going to go live with my grandkids for like the summer. I'll be back around Labor Day, but I'm not that far, so I'm sure I'll see you. And she's like, don't leave me, Ned Beatty. I'll miss you so much. Who will tell me to swim underwater and accidentally drown? And he's like,
Take this medallion and give it to my grandchildren.
he's like, well, I'm genuinely not going that far. Like, it's the same town. I just will not be in this apartment. Like, you could just, it's fine. I'm not going that far. I don't know what I'll do if I can't just walk next door to see your lovely face, Ned Beatty. And then we cut to the house, and the neighbor of the children is there making them breakfast. Is like, is this grandpa incapable of even doing like a couple of flapjacks or scrambling some eggs? But she's making breakfast, and then Neil Patrick Harris goes to leave, and she's like, you forgot your fried bologna. What is this breakfast that she's concocting with fried bologna?
Yeah, the neighbors weren't in this movie enough to be necessary.
Also, the neighbor who's cooking is the mom from American Pie.
Oh. Huh. Yeah, like, I didn't, and I'm not saying that because I wanted more of these characters. I didn't. They were not well established and annoying. But they weren't in the movie enough to be relevant or necessary. Like, they didn't actually, I forgot they existed until the very end when they were, like, singing along, and I was like, oh, right, you were here.
Yeah, and at one point I got a little confused because I was like, why does the sister look so different? Like, no, that's the neighbor girl. That's a different character.
That's the young neighbor who has a crush on Neil Patrick Harris.
Yes.
So Grandpa's like, hang on. Neil Patrick Harris is napping in a hammock. And
he looks so serene and peaceful in this hammock. I was so mad for him when Grandpa woke him up. I was like, this dude has his nap game on lock. He's got a hammock. He looks comfortable. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. That stupid goose shut up for a minute.
He's got just enough shade from the leaves.
Yes, it's a perfect... I was legitimately watching this jealous of this child's nap situation. I was like, I've never had a nap that good. It's never happened for me that good.
But it feels so grandparent to like stop you from napping.
Yes.
Because he comes over and just like kicks him out of the hammock. He's like, follow me to this trapeze school that we'll never visit again and we'll have no standing on the plot.
It's so, and there's like a weird subplot at the trapeze school where the guy who owns the trapeze school is like about to get in there, and he kind of looks like Jesse Ventura if he was really skinny.
I think that's the guy who sang the song, I think.
Oh, is that Sheb Woolley? Okay. Well, in any case, they like pull up a couple of lawn chairs at this trapeze school, and they watch these people do trapeze work for like 3 minutes of the movie, 4 minutes of the movie, and then it leads to, come on, we're gonna go paint my house. And they never reference the trapeze school or the guy or the like, next time when you come back, I'm gonna get up there. It's just, what?
And at the trapeze school, Neil Patrick Harris is like scared of heights, so when they do the jumps, he's like, ah, and I was like, oh, okay, so we're introducing that he's scared of heights. He's gonna fly in the end like E.T.
Yes.
I'm trying to pick up the breadcrumbs that I think the movie is leaving.
Yes, yeah.
And
like
really, they're just a sloppy eater. They're not leading me anywhere. They just eat sloppy.
They're a cookie monster.
Yes. So they paint Grandpa's house, and that's when
he literally Tom Sawyer's the kid into being like, you know, it'd be a fun thing to do. You're not ready for it. Like, what? Painting my whole house? Like, I'll do it. Like, you totally.
But Grandpa's at least painting with him. He's not like ducking out.
Yeah.
And that's where we get the scene where I mentioned before, where Neil Patrick Harris is like, I want new music. Oh, you have a Chubby Checker record? Let me throw this radio out the window. And he paints himself a lot.
Yeah, the grandpa like drips paint on the NPH, and he gets all mad about it, and then Ned Beatty's like, oh, don't worry about it, and he gives himself like a paint roller mohawk, and all I could think of is like, poor Ned Beatty IRL had to spend so much time washing this shit out of his hair for this trash movie. Like, there's no way he's making much more than SAG minimum on Purple People Eater.
Oh, for sure.
Poor Ned Beatty, like, went home to his wife and his family. Well, presumably, I don't know what his home situation is, but in my head, he's got a family. And he, like, comes home and it's like, how was work today? And he just, like, looks and he's still got the paint in his hair.
And so, like, Grandpa leaves, I think, to go talk to Shelley Winters. And so he puts on Neil Patrick Harris.
Air quotes around talk to.
But again, like, there's no,
Grandpa went to get a little some. He put his mohawk in just right, and then he was like, yo, what up, Shelley? How you doing?
The movie, there was no like, hey, why don't you stay here for a little bit? I'm going to go see shit. There was no anything. I don't remember. Grandpa just like disappeared.
Yeah, he does.
And he puts on, Neil Patrick Harris puts on Flying Purple People Eater, and he sees there's some beautiful purple magic. It looks like magic.
It did. It's like just spots appear on the screen.
And then space swirls. And then, so here's what sets this movie apart from Mac and Me. Purple is what they call the Purple People Eater. Purple is kind of cute and like not terrifying. He doesn't have a butthole mouth. He's not terrifying to look at.
He's kind of Grimace by way of the killer clowns from outer space.
Kinda, yeah.
He sort of has their vocal tone as well.
Yeah. But like, I don't know what it is about it, but like, I'm like, oh, you're cute. I don't hate watching you for the next, hour or so or whatever.
Yeah, it's a cute looking animal.
And like, it's pretty articulated. Like, again, I'm gonna go back to Mac and Me all the time for this. Like, it has articulation. It had fur. It was pleasant to watch. Like, I understood what was happening.
It's no Gritty, but it's like in the ballpark of a Gritty where you're like, you're cute and fun to watch. Except for our mother, apparently.
What? Oh,
She doesn't like Gritty.
I mean, I don't love Gritty either, but I get it.
Oh, see, you're both dead to me. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. You're both dead to me.
So he goes and finds the Purple People Eater, and he's got a magic, like his horn is actually like a horn instrument, and he gets little purple music notes come out of it, and he just kind of wiggles, and music happens.
It's very sexy sax. It's very 1980s. Like it's not quite Careless Whisper, but there's like a lot of saxophone happening.
Alexa, play Careless Whisper.
Yes, exactly.
And I love the children's movie logic of like, you're a space creature. Let me put you in the back of my car.
In a different world, this movie is hugely popular, and there was like a Teddy Ruxpin variant that was the Purple People Eater.
Yeah.
Like the horn
Came
lit
with
up
the
and
tape.
played music. Yes.
In an alternate, here's the thing. I always assumed that the Purple People Eater ate people. Like,
Yes.
that's what the song leads me to believe.
But I did a double check on the lyrics, and it's eating purple people, and it sure is fine. So I don't know what he's eating, unless that's supposed to be like the Purple People Eater exclusively has snacks on the LGBT community, which is pretty dark and twisted.
Or what if he chokes them out till their face turns purple? That's the
Either
real
way,
deal.
I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm very uncomfortable.
Because that's what I thought the whole movie. I was like, wait, why isn't he eating people? Like there should have been a moment where he was trying to eat Neil Patrick Harris, and he's like, no, we can be friends.
Yeah, you would think there'd be, a part of this children's movie where it just starts eating people.
No, not that I didn't say actually eating, but like the conflict could
I
have
get
been
it.
like,
No,
I'm gonna
totally.
eat you. No, we're friends, and then his family comes to visit, and he's like,
Yes.
oh, we're gonna eat, and then he has to be like, no, be cool. You
Instead,
are
what
who
happens?
you choose to be.
Instead, what happens is they take him to the mall where he's an immediate sensation.
No, they don't take him. He appears at the mall.
Oh, that is true. He
NPH
does
says,
just show
stay
up.
here so that I can figure out what to do with you in the garage. And he just shows up at the mall, and everyone claps for him as he performs instead of like looking away like everyone else would in the world.
Yeah, or people would be like, "What is this thing? Are we supposed to take pictures? Is this like a Santa meet and greet? What is
Are
going
you
on
gonna ask
here?"
me for $1 if I take a photo of you?
Yeah. He's at least better looking than like a Times Square Elmo.
I agree with that, but still.
Yeah.
And again, I know it's a children's movie, but everyone is just real cool with this definite creature. And when he's like, "Oh, it's a costume. He just wears a costume." What?
Right, that's what I was gonna say. Everybody just is totally fine with this being the reality of the movie of just like, oh, it's a kid that just doesn't ever want to take a costume off, and you'd be like, I'm sorry, what? This kid needs help. Like, we need to help this child.
Also, where did he get this costume with an articulated mouth and a blinking
Yes.
eye?
It's insanely nice looking for a child.
If it was like that terrible thin plastic with the circulation cutting elastic in the back and the like tablecloth with a tie in the back, sure.
Exactly. Yes. So Grandpa Ned Beatty is super into the music that this thing is playing. NPH decides to start a band, and Grandpa's like way into it. And then they have a montage.
I literally missed them like talking about having an audition, and then all of a sudden he was like, "I put an ad in the paper for an audition," and I was like, "Wait, what?"
Well, that's the thing. Neil Patrick Harris is like, gee, I don't even know how to start a band. I only put an ad in all the local newspapers and bought a bunch of radio advertisements. And it was like, wait, you did a lot of things for not knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, you took some steps here.
And then we got a montage.
A Mystery Men audition montage.
That is exactly what I was going to write or say I had written down. It's including one dude who just plays air guitar.
Yeah, this is it's Mystery Men. It's a mishmash of people with real talent and some people who are just like schlubbing around.
Exactly. This guy just gets up there and like air guitars. It's like, you have wasted our time and your own time. What band did you think was going to hire you to play the guitar without playing the guitar?
If I was on
you
the other side of that
dingbat?
audition table, I would have had words for that young man and sent him out the door.
You have not only you've made me question my sanity. Get out.
Leave. And then they're a band now with 2 Asian girls, a white girl, and Screech.
Yeah, Big Z is Screech's name. He's in one other scene of the movie, and that's at the school, at the gym at the very beginning. And I was
is he in the
there was-
beginning?
Yeah, for a second. And then he like exits through the trampoline setting thing, and then he's in the band thing twice. I think he has like 3 lines, one of which is like, everybody do the purple.
Do the purple.
Which is a thing they yell in movies and TV a lot. And only one time in my life have I ever seen a human being successfully pull off, like, I've created a dance move and this is a thing we should all do. And it's only because his was insanely goofy and silly. They're always, like, really elaborate things that you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Although I guess Purple didn't have any move. He just wobbled around the stage.
He sort of grimace
He
wobbled.
just grittied his way around the stage.
Yes.
And then he eats chili pepper and starts hiccuping. And when he hiccups, he makes magic and like telekinesis.
I thought it was like a food magnet because all the food in the restaurant just starts like getting sucked toward his mouth.
Oh, I thought it was just flying around. And I was like, oh, this is going to come in handy later, like in Roger Rabbit with the booze. Nope.
And then we smash cut from NPH, like one of the kids pours a pitcher of water down his throat so he stops getting like
that
his mouth
poor
burned.
dude in that costume was like
I know.
waterboarded.
I know, it seems so bad. But then we smash cut to Neil Patrick Harris planting flowers, and it's literally a mud puddle.
I was
And
like,
he's
I wrote, I was like, that is too wet. That soil is too wet.
He's like slopping his hands through a puddle and then like plops some flour into it and slops water. It's like, no, it's supposed to go in like moist dirt. What are you doing? That's a puddle.
He also has like clearly like in a movie with teenagers or adults, it would have been a romantic moment with the girl after they put the drunk people eater to bed.
Yes.
He's like, let me tell you something about him. And they sit down on the bench and it's like kind of sweet. And he's like, Purple's from outer space. And I was like, where the hell did she think he was from?
Everyone in this movie just thinks he's a kid in a costume, so
I guess.
the evil property owner shows up and is like, oh, 10% rate hike. Here you go. Sorry you're in this position, but enjoy it.
And Grandpa says it's the second rent hike in 6 months. And I'm like, these start to feel like evidence you can take to court. Like, hey, he's being unfair and keeps bringing up the rent.
Right. Also, you probably signed a lease wherein it depicted or described very detailed how the rent could be raised. It's usually not just like random escalators when the guy feels like it.
I actually don't know that my lease says that, because last year I got a thing that was like, oh, your rent's going up by this much. Sign this addendum to the lease, and I just never signed it, so I just never paid higher rent for the next year. And then
that worked?
Yeah. And then when this year came around, around the time my lease was gonna like renew, even though I'm month to month now, I got a letter again that was like, your rent's going up, and it was the same number as last time, so I was cool with that. And it at the bottom was like, if we don't receive the signed addendum, we're assuming you're leaving the apartment. And I was like, okay, I see you.
Yeah, they saw through your ruse there.
I was like, okay, fine.
I cannot believe that worked for you.
Yeah. I mean, he also lost all the other tenants. So the floor below me and the floor below that both moved out last year.
Oh.
And like earlier this year. So I was like, oh, really? I guess if I just keep choosing to pay this rent, we're going to deal with it. Because who else is paying you rent? But now he has other tenants.
Well, normally your rent gets hiked after your lease ends or after the term of your lease ends. So
yeah, that was what it
usually-
was.
yeah. But this guy just decides to randomly raise it up. And then we get to Grandpa and the neighbor Rita, and she's apparently very sick. And she says to Ned Beatty in this children's movie, I just want to die in my own home. What in the hell is this movie?
Yeah, it's so bizarre. Like, this shouldn't have been the plot. Like, the plot should have had nothing to do with old people getting evicted.
No.
Oh, Grandpa's also their agent now and books them a gig to play a wedding. And the nosy
Yes.
neighbor comes in to be like, my daughter heard him saying she was an alien. And he's like, well, your daughter snoops. And totally thought this was going to go somewhere because she's like,
Right.
we don't snoop. And I was like, oh, we spy. Like, there's something. They're agents that are looking like, that's what that should have been. They should have been like government spies
Yes.
looking for the alien. Ugh,
That would have been, or
better
even
movie.
I would have taken like talent scouts because there's this thing in here where the guy's like a record label owner that also goes nowhere. But also, who would hire this band as a wedding band? They've never played in public. They have no audition tape. And then they get hired to play someone's actual wedding.
Because someone saw Purple in the mall. That's literally what he says.
I know, but like, that is a crazy thing to do to hire your wedding band.
What did I write? Oh boy, a wedding band made of children that no one in the wedding knows. This isn't weird.
And then they play a song, and Purple shows up to do his like saxophone interlude, and he's clearly not holding any instruments, and saxophone sounds are coming out of him, and no one is bothered by this at all.
He pulls, like, if anyone's familiar with Beetlejuice's Graveyard Review from Universal, like, the piano opens and he, like, rises out of it from smoke, and he's like,
yeah, it's very much like a theme park entertainment show every time they're on stage, including the very bad voice overdubs. Neil Patrick Harris has, like, a child's voice, and then he gets up singing, it's like, love me tender. And it's like, where this voice does not come out of this child.
At all. But you know the weird thing? It does kind of sound like what adult singing Neil Patrick Harris sounds like.
It does a little bit. That
Which weird. I was
too.
like, how did we get this?
So this is when Screech gets to yell, everybody do the purple. And then the entire wedding does the purple. At which point this guy sidles up to Ned Beatty and is like, hey, I like the cut of these kids' jib here. Why don't you bring them down to my studio? We'll cut a record. And they're like, yeah, okay. He's like, no, really, I'm a record executive, and pulls a card out of his pocket. And it was just the longest possible version of this scene. Instead of it being like the button where it's like, oh my gosh, like he just hands him the card and is like, I'm a record exec, bring him down to the studio. They have to have like a tete-a-tete about it where Ned Beatty doesn't believe him. But it's just,
it should have been the button from Back to the Future where he's like,
right.
Hey, you guys got a sound and I'm into it. Here's my card.
Right. Like, why are we padding this runtime with all this nonsense?
Because the movie had to be 90 minutes for the advertisers, so they just padded it. I'm telling you, this was a TV movie. I have no proof, but
it feels like one. One of the comments on YouTube is like, so I didn't make this movie up as a child. Purple goes to hang with Rita while Grandpa and NPH have like a mini adventure.
No, because they're like, oh, we need her to meet him for some reason. And they go in and she's scared of him. And he's like, well, Grandpa and I are going to go for a walk. You two talk. And I was like, even if he wasn't an alien, you just walked into a house with a stranger. And
Yes.
you're like, hey, other person, talk. Bye.
Deal with this person for a while. I'm busy. And NPH introduces him as his best friend, which would be sad in any circumstances, but particularly when it's a purple alien he met a week ago.
I know, it's so sad. It
The
reminds me
Scummy
of the Grimace Planet from that McDonald's videotape.
That is a reference for a very small number of people.
Planet Grimace.
Yeah,
I
you
think.
know, from the McDonald's tapes that you could buy at McDonald's and were distributed nowhere else.
I'm sure they might have been at like a Blockbuster. Do you think?
I'm just saying they weren't like ever aired. It was
Oh no, no, they
it
were.
was
They
a
are on
VHS
YouTube.
tape you could purchase at a McDonald's and nowhere else probably.
They are on YouTube in their entirety, and my friend and I had a fun night watching them.
I can't say that I've done that with that particular
No,
thing, but obviously
they're
the
short,
sentiment
so
is the
they're like a
same.
half-hour tape, so it's like whatever. So it's a fun.
And they were
drinking.
made by the Rugrats studio, so the animation was good.
Yeah, it looks kind of like not Rugrats, Rocket Power. It looks a little like Rocket Power
Oh, okay.
in style, which I enjoy. So now the landlord fully admits that he's like, look, I want to kick all the old people out because I want this to be young, hip apartments, and young people don't want to live next to old people.
He tells her she has to pay $20 extra for the 2 nights that her at-home care nurse was there taking care of her. He's like, guest cost extra, which is the craziest addendum to a lease I've ever heard.
Yeah, that would drive me nuts. It's like a college dorm where they're like, you can only have guests 2
Right.
nights in a 7-day period, and any more
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah. Then we cut to the thing we talked about a little bit earlier. It's like band practice, and one of the guitar playing girls is like, actually, this is ageism, which is when people, and because one of them tries to say it's like prejudice or racism or something. Yeah. She's like, no, actually, it's ageism, which is, and she rattles off like the Webster's definition
Me,
of
the Asian
ageism.
girl in the movie, is going to say, this is not racism. This is
Yeah.
ageism.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just this like random monologue about how ageism is bad and young people should spend more time with the elderly. And it's just like, I guess that's a nice message to teach kids, but this is a weird avenue to go down for this.
It's so
Again,
bizarre.
This is a movie based on a novelty song about a purple people eater. Like, what in the hell?
It's so bizarre. And so the pink Power Ranger goes, "Why don't we throw him a party?" And I was like, "Why would that help, Linda? Like, were you listening? They're being evicted."
And it's not a fundraiser party, it's just a party. But it does eventually turn into like a rally.
Yeah. Well, because the first one's just a party, and they have old people on roller skates, and I was like, this is a recipe for shattered bones.
It's old people on roller skates, and then Rita just randomly giving kids haircuts and being like, "You kids with your long hair, I don't get it." And it's like
So bizarre.
Screech seems to be getting his haircut at gunpoint. Like he clearly does not want it cut. And then she's like, "You're next, Purple. I see all that hair going over there." And cut to, and this is the craziest part of the movie, and I had to back it up because I was like, surely I missed a thing. We get Purple at a little pool with Thor Birch, who's like gung-ho about using the water slide, and is like, "We should slide together." And I was like, that slide is not big enough for two people, let alone Purple on his own.
No, I went, that costume cannot get wet, and I'm going to say that out loud.
Yeah. But Thor Birch slides into the pool, gets like a little bit too much water in her face, and does that thing little kids do where they have like a little bit of a panic before she's like, "No, I'm cool." Yeah. And then we smash cut to Purple and the band playing on what appears to be a television show, and then Chubby Checker shows up and plays with them, and then we smash cut out of it to the song continues, but Purple and the gang are in the convertible that Ned Beatty owns, and they never explain what they were just doing. Like,
Yeah.
I thought it was a dream sequence, and then it doesn't, it clearly wasn't, but it's just like Thor Birch goes into a pool, suddenly we're on
American Bandstand.
Thank you. American Bandstand with Chubby Checker, like for real, smash cut to them driving down a highway singing the twist, and I was just like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to think just happened. Like, what do you want to tell me, movie?
Yeah, and also at this party, the landlord is with a rich woman, and she's like, "I think this can be condos." And apparently he's like, "That's better than apartments." And I was like, okay. So I went into this, because I'm like, okay, I've seen children's movies. The party's going to be there. Something dramatic's going to happen, and they're going to blame Purple. Like a dog's going to fall in the pool.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, "Purple did it."
Yeah.
This is where we're going to get the drama of the movie that has to be resolved in the next 30 minutes so we can get more commercial breaks and get this wrapped up in time for hockey. And then, nope, nothing happens at the party.
Nope.
Nothing.
Not even
The
a
party
little bit.
did not need to be there.
Makes no sense whatsoever. And then,
There's Purple merchandise.
yeah, there is. Well, also, we skipped over the part right before the party where the little girl is like in grave danger and Purple flies up to
So that's
save
right
her?
after the party.
Oh, okay.
Because early on in the movie, they were like, "You know, you're not allowed to go on the balcony by yourself." And I was like, at that point, I had stopped picking up the breadcrumbs because I was like, this movie burned me too much.
Every time you tell me a thing I think is important, it is not important. You set up checkoffs and didn't pay off any of them.
Except for this one.
Right.
So I was like, when finally she's in her T-Rex hood and the dog in a little princess dress runs out on the balcony and goes on the other side of the balcony, which has too much space for the other side of the railings of a balcony.
Indeed it does, yes.
Like, it's enough space for a human like me to comfortably stand.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "I can't go on the balcony, but I have to rescue the puppy." And I was like, "No, you don't. Nothing's wrong. She's not in real danger."
That
And
dog
then-
got out there and it'll get back just fine.
Just throw some treats at it. It'll come. It's fine. And then the nosy neighbors are dressed like hula girls for no reason
Yeah, it's very confusing.
and run across the lawn to scream and be like, "Oh, we have to get a ladder to save the dog." And then Neil Patrick Harris and Ned Beatty run across the lawn and they're like, with Purple, and they're like, "Oh no." And there's one moment where Thor Birch goes to hike her leg over the railing, and clearly it's too tall for her to actually like vault herself
Yes.
over. So she
Yeah.
goes up there, and then it comes down, and she's literally just standing behind a railing that's like her chin height, and
Yeah.
they're acting as though she's standing on a precipice, like looking over the edge.
The pebbles are like crunching under her feet as they
Falling,
go over the edge.
scatter- yeah.
Yeah.
And when it's just the nosy neighbor little girl and Neil Patrick Harris, Purple flies up there and hugs her. She's not in danger, so I can't say he saves her.
Yeah.
He just hugs her.
He comforts her in her time of peril.
It's so dumb. And then the neighbor girl's like, "I saw him fly," and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be some drama." Nope, never mind.
Yep. No, it's not.
I was like,
it's
okay,
not
they're
that.
They're laying down groundwork again, like they did with this stupid balcony bit. I better start paying attention. Nope.
No, not
Nope.
needed yet. Still don't need to pay attention.
Shelley Winters is gonna die apparently.
Yeah, and the paramedic at one point, they're like wheeling her out or checking her out, and the paramedic is like, honestly, the most important thing now is she has to want to live. Like, what are we doing?
Oh, so I was
This is
supposed to
for
pick up on that
children.
note?
Yeah, like, this is a movie for children
Chekhov's Will to Live.
based on a novelty song. Like, what are we doing with this screenplay?
They really lost the plot. And then Neil Patrick Harris turns to Grandpa and he's like, Grandpa, what's it like to die?
Yes!
You
And
don't
poor
ask
Ned
old
Beatty.
people that. You don't ask old people that.
Poor Ned Beatty is like, I don't know, Neil Patrick Harris. I imagine, he doesn't say this, but it's like, I imagine it's pretty bad.
Although, Ned Beatty had to have lost a wife at some point.
Yeah, no, he did.
Not
He-
talked
there was
about ever.
Yeah, no. He's just stupping Rita.
Yeah.
Maybe that's his thing.
Yeah.
They have to be on the verge of death.
This is where I was like, oh, I want the landlord to get eaten. That's what I want. I want.
We hear like a and we turn around and the landlord's feet are disappearing down Purple's mouth.
No, I want Purple's family to come back to come to the planet and eat it. Because that way it's not Purple's fault.
Yeah.
And they have a live 8 for old people.
They do, including a scene where the shitty landlord guy like is flipping through the radio and it's on like 4 consecutive channels where it's like big concert today to hold on rally for old people.
Super exciting for the old people today. This concert
Yeah.
in the park.
Yes. Apparently every time we switch on a radio, it's a guy who sounds like he's beamed directly from 1940.
I haven't switched on a radio in a very long time. I'm gonna tell you that much. And so he also picks up his car phone to get his lawyer to stop this benefit concert, and I was like, how would you? Under what grounds are you gonna stop
Yeah.
a charity concert?
Like, you want to pull their permits or something? So we cut to the hospital. This is the Purple merch gets a little more obvious. They hand a purple people eater hat to Rita, who's like, I'm not dying anymore. Also, we haven't touched on it yet, but the bad guy's name is Mr. Noodle. Like, his
It
last
is.
name is his like Derek Noodle is this man's name, and it's like a perfectly fine name for a human
Mr. Jim
being.
Noodle.
Yeah, if that's your name, rock on. But it is not a good name for the bad guy in a movie. Like, it's too ridiculous sounding when they're like, oh, Mr. Noodle, that mean old man. Like, wait a minute.
If your last
Mr.
name is Noodle, please tweet at us.
If your last name is Noodle, that is like a perfectly fine last name for a human.
No,
I'm just saying.
I know, but I'm saying tweet at us. I want to.
Yeah.
I want to know.
But if you're the bad guy or bad woman, evil person in a children's movie, Noodle should not be your surname.
Although I guess children's movie, like he needs to be silly.
I guess, but it just seems so odd every time they talk about him being Mr. Noodle. Anyway, Noodle attacks Purple in the garage and like accidentally turns on the jukebox, so they're having like a weird chase scene. It's not a fight scene. It's like
very
a chase.
Shaun of the Dead.
Yes.
And this is where it started to piss me off because I was like, oh, we shouldn't have this much time left in this movie.
Right.
Fight back, Purple, or just run back in the house.
Well, I should say, pause for just 1 second, since you mentioned it. Do you want to read out the text exchange we had while I was watching this movie?
Sure.
Because this is I think a pretty common thing on the show. Peel back the curtain a little bit here. Often when you're watching these movies, you like do a little peek and see like how much time is left because you're like, certainly I've gotten through a significant portion of this movie and there can't be that much time left. So this is the conversation we had earlier today.
So there's no pretext. Like this is the first text I got from him at 1:32 p.m.
Oh boy, period.
What?
I looked at the remaining runtime and it was a full hour.
It's only 90, isn't it?
Realistically, without the credits, it's 85 minutes. But I'm telling you, I already had to do a peek check, and it was a full hour.
So yeah, this movie it clearly had to be 90 to fit into the advertising thing. So Purple's just like not fighting back and letting himself get picked up. And I have to say, because Purple's like not fighting back, I think that makes it creepier that Mr. Noodle is like, everything he says to him makes me deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, it's creepy as hell.
It feels very predatory pedophile.
Yeah.
And I'm uncomfortable.
And he ties up Purple, and then it's like, you gotta take this costume off, kid. And he starts trying to pull Purple's head off, and Purple's like, no, 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 no. And he's like, all right, fine, but you stay there on your pool table, and I'm gonna go to sleep here on my pool table.
Yeah, he brings him to a dive bar that we've never heard of and has no context, and we don't know anything about it.
It seems to be a shuttered dive bar, but he's like, you're gonna sleep on a pool table, and I'll sleep on an adjacent one. And this
You
is
make
just
one peep, and I'm gonna gag you.
like, ugh, what does that
Ew.
mean?
Ew. And he says, I'm just going to hold you till after the concert, then I'll let you go. Just say you forgot to show up or something. What?
Oh no! Oh no! 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 That's not good.
There would be a lot of questions, sir. Assuming, because in your brain, dude, you think this is a young child.
Right.
What do you think people are going to do when he's like, I forgot to show up to the important concert?
Yeah, people are not going to just buy that this is what happened.
Yeah.
So NPH goes on the search, and
And also,
Purple.
I don't know why Purple doesn't fly. Like, Purple can fly. I don't know why he didn't fly away.
Yeah, no. But the second they got outside, you think Purple should have just launched himself onto the roof of the house and been like, "Suck it."
His little purple magic spells suck it.
So Purple escapes and also slashes the bad guy's tires, which is a pretty badass move, and then goes like running down the street to get away.
He's also throwing pool balls at Mr. Noodle, who's
Yeah.
reacting as though he's being hit with like pencils. He's like,
Yeah,
knock it off. No, those would hurt. You would die.
You would be really jacked up if someone hit you with a pool ball. So there's this amazing sequence where earlier Neil Patrick Harris is like looking for Purple, and he sees a woman on a horse, and he's like, "Hey, have you seen my friend?" And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Never mind," and he pedals away.
Well, he says he's purple. He's like,
Yeah,
he's purple
yeah.
and short or whatever.
Yeah, pedals away, and then Purple's running, and here comes a lady on a horse who's like, "Oh, you must be the friend of that child. Come here," and like swings him up on the saddle behind her, and they go like galloping off, and it's like, why is this like? Surely it's because someone who made this movie owned a horse, and they just thought it would be cool. But like, there's no logical reason for this to happen in this movie. That this woman on a horse saves the day.
And then she drops Purple off at home instead of at the venue. So somehow she knows Neil Patrick Harris's address.
Or
And
Purple
Purple-
does.
But I was like, Purple, just go to the venue. You know the concert's happening.
No, instead I have to steal Ned Beatty's convertible and
Purple
then have
can
a
drive
chase.
somehow.
Yes, it just has a chase sequence around a traffic circle for like a minute or two.
He drives into a
A roundabout.
he drives into a car wash. He stops
Oh,
for
yeah.
a hot dog. And I was just like,
the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile shows up.
I was so angry. I was like, stop padding this runtime. This movie could have been a neat hour.
Also, once again, if anyone out there listening has anything to do with the Wienermobile, I would love to drive it. Genuinely on my bucket list. Even 25 yards in a parking lot would do. So get at me, Wienermobile people.
I think I was either at it or in it one time.
We went and saw it when we were kids.
Yeah. 'Cause
We
I got-
auditioned. We auditioned.
That's what
to
it
be-
was.
Yes, we auditioned to be Oscar Mayer Wiener spokschildren.
That feels like a recipe for getting beat up now that I think about it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, what can you do? Oscar Mayer has a way with BOLOGNA.
Yeah. I was gonna say you could put wrap ice in $100 bill and put it on your black eye, but I don't know
Exactly.
I don't know that Oscar
Exactly.
Mayer's paying you that much.
Oh, I think you get paid pretty well to be the spokeskid. Purple also destroys a mini golf course in his quest to get away or get to the venue. He like drives just straight through a mini golf course.
And at the end, the bad guys, Mr. Noodle is still stuck in the car wash, and Purple comes out, and the police are like, "We got to get you to the concert." And Purple's like, "If you can catch me," and peels away. And I was like, "No, Purple."
Also, we didn't mention that this whole montage is set to like a series of 1950s rock and roll songs. So it's like Chubby Checker, Little Richard. And it's just like one after every time there's a cut, it's a new 50s song.
And this is where Neil Patrick Harris is like, "I've never been good at this public speaking stuff, but my grandfather says I need to stop dreaming and start doing, and evicting old people is wrong." And I was like, this feels like I should care about this, but the movie
Yeah.
has not given me enough to care about.
It's a real strong left wing, like public housing is a right, or housing is a right, and we should take care of our people, which like I'm in support of the message of this movie. It's just a weird vehicle to deliver it.
Yeah, exactly. And Little Richard is the mayor?
Yes. Little Richard cameos are always fascinating to me. Like, he clearly really enjoys going up to absurd levels because he's also really great in Mystery Alaska, where he plays himself, but he is asked to sing the national anthem, and it's like the middle of Alaska, so it's like 5 degrees outside, and the whole bit is he's freezing cold, and they pay him to sing also the Canadian national anthem as a way to like make the players get cold, and like because the team they're playing is not used to it, and he's amazing in this really, really tiny role in this movie, and he's also pretty fun here, which is odd.
I heard him and I was like, I obviously know that voice is Little Richard, but I was like, I feel like he sounded like he was in a movie, and I couldn't remember what movie I would remember his voice from.
Yeah, probably more the singing than anything else, but
yeah,
he's like, we're gonna pass a law, and then he's like, we'll do it right now. All those in favor, aye. All those opposed, dead silence. That's it. You can't evict old people from their houses anymore. And I was like, that is not how any of this works. But they're like, somebody cue up the Sheb Woolley, and it's like, one heart, white heart, flapper, blah, blah, blah. And that's the end of the movie. Like, it just literally
you forgot the part where Purple waves goodbye to Neil Patrick Harris, spins around into a purple cyclone and flies into the sky saying Neil Patrick Harris's name and disappears. And I was like,
yes.
And no one cares.
None of them care. The adults are totally, totally fine and unfazed by this happening to them.
The Mr. Noodle never shows up, so he doesn't get to like get told off by the mayor that like you can't, like, nothing.
It's utterly bizarre.
It's a mess.
What are your final thoughts on Purple People Eater?
It's like I said at the beginning, it's not aggressively bad. Like, the creature is good. The acting is fine because for the most part, they're pretty competent actors.
It's almost to the level of, man, you should check this out just because it's totally, totally bizarre. Like, it's such an odd choice, but I don't think it's as insane in the way that Mac and Me is. Like, I think this has a lot more dead air than Mac and Me
I agree.
does.
I think watch it on YouTube so you can like turn up double speed sometimes to get through stuff.
Yeah, there's just a lot of dead air. There's some really like fun, ridiculous sequences of this movie that totally employ little kid logic in a way that's really entertaining. But mostly you're just like, what is this again? Like, wait, why? What?
Yeah. It's on YouTube, so it's free, and you don't really have to go out of your way to find it. So I'll soft recommend it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. It's almost to the level of, oh my gosh, you have to see this because it's just the craziest thing. But it's just a little too slow.
Yes.
But happy 60th anniversary Purple People Eater the song, and 30th anniversary Purple People Eater the movie, and 0th anniversary to Purple People Eater the podcast. Can't wait to see Purple People Eater the musical in 2048.
Yeah.
Cannot wait.
It's going to be fun.
Once again, folks, don't forget to check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/dissectingthe80s, and you can see all of the great reward tiers there. We're really close to achieving the next big group goal, which means everybody gets a bonus episode. So if you've been thinking about doing it and you haven't, make sure you jump in on that. You can find us on Facebook and on Twitter at dissectthE80s on Twitter. Just search for us on Facebook. And if you want to email us, it's dissectingthE80s@gmail.com. We also always really appreciate it when people share the show. So if there's an episode of the show that you like, especially around the time now, people are traveling for the holidays and doing all that stuff. It's a good way to get someone to listen to something. So send them on episode if you think that they're a good fit for us. And don't forget to review the show on iTunes. We read those out on the air. It's been a little while since we had one. So we're feeling a little lonely, if I'm being honest. If you're out there, you should leave us a review. That would be super duper nice. Our next episode, this is a 3-episode month for us. Our next December episode will be our annual Christmas episode on December 17th. Ernest Saves Christmas. That's right, Jim Varney in the house. That will be a Smoky Mountain Christmas. That's right, Dolly Parton in the house.
She's the angel on my tree.
Thank you all once again for listening to the show. I have been Tripolino.
I will always be Andrew Leno.
Until December 17th.
Don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production. Things we're gonna cut out in editing.
And with me, as always, is a man who's got one big horn and one big eye.
This is weird.
Yep. Yep, I heard it. I heard it coming out of my mouth, and I was like, "Nope, that's the wrong part of the song. You're just
Take
gonna have
those
to give
words
me
back.
a minute." We're at take 2.